What do you get if Warcraft and Lovecraftian horror had a baby? Well, you get a game called Armies of Exigo. This real-time strategy game had unique mechanics that separated it from other RTS titles back in the day, and built upon pre-existing mechanics, fleshing out the tried and true ideas out well. Armies of Exigo, which I'll refer to as Exigo from now on, had an underground mode, which meant that you would have to control units on both the lower level and normal layers of terrain. This doubled the complexity of the game, as you would have to simultaneously watch both maps, building bases and attacking on both fronts. For a game released back in the year 2004, this was a pretty innovative and unique concept that was fleshed out decently and carried out with competence. Another core mechanic of this game was the level up system, where almost all biological units could level up, gaining stat buffs and sometimes unique auras when they hit a certain level, the max being 5. This individual experience and level up system applies to 2 of the 3 playable races, but I'll get into the details when I explain each race individually. This level up system is similar to Primitive Wars, another old strategy game that I covered, so feel free to check that out after this video. Like all RTS titles, your main objective was to gather resources, build a base and army, and eventually take down your foe. You had 3 main resources you had to gather in Exigo: gold, gems, and lumber. Gold was the general resource that was needed in almost everything, lumber being mainly used for buildings and simpler units, and gems being the resource needed for special units and was the rarer of all 3 resources. There were 3 factions or races in this game, and no matter what race you chose, each race had a unique population system that I'll touch on soon in the video. Units were also separated into 2 categories, normal units and large units. Large units were more expensive but usually had more stats or special gimmicks. These units, however, were countered by special units that were specifically designed to hunt these large units. I shall refer to these counter units as anti-tanks from now on. Like almost every RTS title, you had your mandatory human race. The human race in this game are called the Empire, where basically humans and all human-esque beings are in alliance. The Empire work through a food system, which is basically your normal mechanic of building farms to increase your population cap, which is set at 200. Your worker unit are peasants that will gather resources, build, and repair, the normal functionality of what workers usually do. These peasants can be upgraded when you upgrade your town hall into a stone keep. Here you can upgrade them to be able to utilize teamwork to enable at least 5 workers on a building, speeding up the construction process. Your peasants can also build a blacksmith, which serves as the upgrade hub for all weapon and armor upgrades, and also serves as a drop point for lumber. This building or mechanic is not exclusive to the Empire, as all the other races have a building that does the exact same thing, but just with different names. One of the first things that you need to build in order to survive would be the barracks. This is your first production building, aside from your town hall that you start off with. Here, you're able to train swordsmen, basically your primary melee infantry to tank the front lines. Pikemen, an anti-tank unit that are counter units to large enemy units. This unit, however, seems to be a little bit more flimsier than the swordsmen and seem to die rather a little too quickly. Elven Rangers, your basic range unit to attack both ground and air units. Priests, who are healers that are also able to buff your units and resurrect fallen allies. Having 3 priests, you can also cast a spell that slowly drains their mana to give a global buff to all your units. Then we have mages, who are your high tier offensive spellcasters. And knights, your tanky horse riding melee unit that are quite resistant to magic. As you can already tell, the barracks can pump out a variety of units, but most of the high tier units are locked out until you build the technology building for them first. The barracks also has powerful upgrades such as being able to train 2 units simultaneously, and also permanent buffs for your infantry. The second production building you are able to build is the Elven Sanctuary, where you're able to train Dryads, Phoenixes, and Valkyries. Dryads are basic spellcasting units that, amongst other things, are able to summon bears to assist them in battle. Phoenixes are aerial support units that can detect invisible units and attack air units. And Valkyries, powerful aerial units that can reign supreme from the skies above. The Gnome Workshop is the third production building, which mainly produces your large type units. Here you can build catapults to serve as siege units, Gnomarks that are flying transports, Steambirds, flying siege units that deal devastating damage against buildings and can also attack land units and trees. And lastly, Miners, units that can build tunnels that link up together for a quicker mode of travel. These are all the units of the Empire, and most of them can be upgraded in their corresponding tech buildings. There are other production buildings such as the Temple to train priests, but these units can also be trained in the barracks as well, and the only difference is that they have their upgrades for the respective units. But as it is a repetition of units, I'm just going to leave these buildings out. It is important to have a lot of priests when playing the Empire, as healing and resurrecting units are key to maintaining a strong force. as having higher level units are very important. There are also some Empire units that are only available in the campaign, such as the Crossbowmen, but the campaign will be left for another video. The next race you can play as are the Beasts. Quite akin to the Orcs in Warcraft, the Beasts are a race mainly comprising of wild beasts and creatures, such as the Orcs, Goblins, wild animals, lizardmen, and some demons here and there. Unlike the Empire, when the Beasts repair their buildings, the max health of the building slowly goes down while the current health goes up, so basically all the Beastman buildings have a durability limit. In order to raise the population cap for the Beastmen, you need to build a stable, which in turn trains Boren, a buffalo bovine-like creature that provides meat for your army. In concept, this unit is sort of like the Overlord from StarCraft, where it is a moving population control unit, but the similarities pretty much end there. You can also train goblins, weak range units, to ride the Boren into battle. The goblins by themselves are naturally weak and have a low health pool, but by riding the Boren, they gain additional stat boosts, sacrificing agility for health. The worker unit for the beasts are minions. They do what all worker units do, but they are also able to pick up arms from a building called the Weapon Master, transforming them into warriors. This Weapon Master building is basically your primary research building that serves as a lumber drop-off point, with the additional benefit to create blades in order to transform your minions quickly into warriors when you need the extra infantry to defend your base or need to quickly reinforce your army. The arena is your first production building that you can make. Here you can produce the aforementioned warriors, your main staple of your army. These warriors can later in turn into berserkers for an upgrade, becoming an upgraded version wielding 2 axes instead of 1. And goblins, fragile range units that was previously mentioned. Witches are basic spellcaster units that can sacrifice units to heal other units, so strategically you would want to sacrifice low HP units or even the Boren. And also, if you sacrifice 3 witches, you can summon a very powerful demon that can summon imps and use powerful skills. The last unit in the arena is the Harpy, your essential flying support detector unit. The Bestiary is another production building available to the beasts. Here you predominantly train your large type units. First on the list is the Trolls, a long-range siege unit that attacks land units and trees. Ogres, powerful melee units that can damage multiple units at a time. And lastly, the Manticore Rider, a powerful flying combat unit that attacks air units and can later be upgraded to attack land units as well. The last production building available for the Beastmen is the Lizard Fortress, where you can train the lizard kind. Here you can train Striders, ranged combat units that are quite agile and turn invisible when they're not moving. Then you have Wyverns, flying combat units that decreases the armor of the enemies when they attack. And lastly, the Warlock, a high tier spellcaster that also turns invisible when not moving. With these powerful, hard-hitting units in the beast's arsenal, they are quite the formidable foe. The last and final race of Exigo are the Eldritch Horror themselves, known as the Fallen. The Fallen are a race that seems to be inspired by Lovecraftian cosmic horrors, mixed in with some insects from Hell and Dark Elves. To be honest, this race seems to be a mix of Zergs from StarCraft and the Dark Elves from the Warhammer universe. The Fallen have a couple of unique mechanics that make their playstyle significantly different from the other 2 races. Firstly, they start off with 2 workers, an insectoid creature called Harvesters, the gatherers of the race. They can only gather resources and cannot build buildings. These units, however, are bulkier than the other race's workers and harvest resources twice as fast. The second type of workers are the Summoners. These units cannot gather resources but can only build buildings. The Summoners have no attack functionality, instead, return the damage received to the attacker when being attacked. After building some tech buildings, you are able to upgrade the Summoners to Void Walkers, losing their functions as a worker, but can also be turned into one of the Fallen's most powerful spellcasters. It is important to also note that the Summoners are also able to transform into Control Mode, which increases your population cap, which comes in the form of control. This not only increases your population cap, but also gives you vision in the same location in the underground terrain as well. The Fallen can only construct buildings on deformed ground, sort of like how the Zerg can only build on creep, or the Undead only being able to build on blighted ground. Unlike other races, the Fallen do not have an active way of healing, repairing, or resurrecting units. Instead, all Fallen units and structures recover health over time, as long as the entity is standing on deformed ground. The Fallen also seem to have a hive-like mentality, as no individual unit gains experience like the other races, but they collectively gain experience together as a group through the Soul Trap building. So if one type of unit is level 2, all the same unit will be on the same level. Each production building of the Fallen are separated into one of the 3 main factions in this unholy alliance. The first basic production building you're able to build is the Hive. Belonging to the Hive Mind faction, the Hive Mind are basically insect-like creatures akin to the worker unit, the Harvester. Here you can train Hive Stingers, basic combat units that are quite fragile, and are mostly used as swarm units. They kind of remind me of Zerglings. The Hive Stingers are able to fly and attack air units if an upgrade is researched. The Hive Spitter are the second units on the list. This unit serves as the basic ranged unit of the Hive Mind, able to damage both air and ground units with its venomous spit. Next is the Hive Guard, the Hive Mind's basic aerial combat unit. And lastly, the Seekers. Unlike other detector units, the Seekers are permanent invisible land units, not aerial, that can bury underground anywhere on the map to scout and give detection. The second production building is the Vengeance Hall. This building allows you to train units from the Deep Elves faction. First on the list, Nightmares. These units serve as both combat units and as spellcasters. The Matriarch is another spellcaster unit that can use necromancy to raise skeletons to fight for you. Then we have the Avenger, probably my most favorite unit out of the Fallen race. The Deep Elf here seems to be in some sort of weird organic bioweapon that is used as a siege instrument. This unit kind of reminds me thematically of the Dragoon from StarCraft. The last production building belongs to the Voidwalker faction, where all of them are air units. Here lies all the Eldritch horrors. Firstly, the Aerial, which is a flying unit that serves as both a detector and a transport. Then we have the Stalker, a powerful air unit that is quite beefy, and also can cast a spell called Defile, which prevents ranged ground units from attacking. Even more powerful than the Stalker, we have the last Eldritch Behemoth, the Beholder. This juggernaut of a unit shoots multiple projectiles of lightning to the enemy, which deals devastating damage. With the combination of deep elves, ferocious insects, and cosmic entities, the Fallen are truly a frightening force to be reckoned with. So, there we have it, all 3 main playable factions of Armies of Exigo. I hope this video took you down memory lane, and I'm curious if you have ever played or heard of this game before. Also, the main 3 factions of my YouTube channel are calling out to you. The like, subscribe, and comment factions beg of you, so please heed their call. If there is any other indie game titles or old games you would like to see, feel free to let me know in the comments below. This has been Requiem of the IndieMasters. Have a good day, everyone.